So welcome to Art 116. We're going to do this thing this morning, a little bit of critiquing first. I've got several of your projects that got turned in to coursework. I've got them open on my desktop. So I'm going to open them up and show them to everybody. I'm not going to tell everybody whose it is unless somehow you put your own name excuse me, on it. But I would like to talk about them just in terms of what are the effects that you're able to accomplish? Is there anything else that we might be able to suggest as a little bit of a help that might make this composition work just a little bit more from a color standpoint? Because this whole exercise, this whole process was all about plastic color, an important part of color theory, trying to show how color can work in a composition to either make things advance towards the viewer or recede away from the viewer. So having said all that, let me just turn on my screen share thing and share this screen with you guys. So don't look at the name, just look at the piece here. Let's see, I can't go down any farther. Can I make this bigger? I could, but then I'd have to kill you guys. There we go. Okay, so this is a very lovely painting here. Somebody has not just been using their the dumb end of their paintbrush to paint this in a pointillist way, but is using a little bit of actual paint bristles, and so we've got a much more painterly approach here. No harm in that. Let me just bring you to this piece right here, because just with the idea of the red and then a tint of red over here, we have a variety of mark making in here. We have deeper reds and we have tints of reds. And so this tint of red kind of shows a little bit more of the little bulbous end of the apple that's kind of three-dimensional and poking out at us. This advances towards the viewer a little bit, while this area, this crescent-shaped shadow, tends to recede. So just these two shapes next to each other really tend to really help this thing become three-dimensional. This little highlighting up here and kind of around here in sort of a crescent shape also does the trick. So a crescent shape of highlight, a little piece of highlighting happening through the middle, and then this crescent shape of darkness really help to sell this thing and make this thing pop three-dimensional. This one, it isn't quite working on this one quite yet. We would need a little bit of dark crescent over on this side, deeper, darker crescent. So some of these higher key areas of red need to be supplanted more with some of these darker reds over here to get more of a crescent shape of darker red over here. And then some of this some of these higher key reds need to be concentrated a little bit more just off center in the left side of this apple, this left side apple, to make this one work. And that could be repeated in some of these other ones. This apple on the far right-hand side over here, top row, far right-hand side, is working pretty good. And the apple on the bottom row on the right side is working pretty good. I'm going to go in here to the middle and just talk about what's happening with shadows and shading now. We could actually use much darker use of paint in the middle here, where we've got shadows in between the pieces of fruit. Lots of deep shadows, lots of cast shadows. So some of this darker area in the background that is 70, 80, 90% blue, we need a lot more of that blue density in this shaded area between the fruit. So if this could get darkened up quite a bit, that would be great. This is pretty good for the background. This knocks the background into the background really good. It gets the background to recede away from the viewer's eye. The foreground here, this pool of light, this is where we need to make this advance towards the viewer more, because right now this is kind of sitting in the same plane that this stuff is at the top edge. And I don't know if you guys can actually see my cursor as I'm moving it around here, but I would really love to see a lot more high key value in this area. A pool of the light green, the pale green paint in the foreground. I'm talking about 90% pale green paint, really high key, to make this a pool of light so that this background can recede in space. So we need a lot more shadow between the apples and a lot more light in the foreground of the apples to really help pop this thing into 3 dimensions. I'm going to stop the share and come back to you guys. I hope that you guys could see my cursor when I was indicating different areas of the composition. If you can't, please unmute your mics and tell me, or type it into the chat. James, I can't see your cursor. I don't know what you're talking about. And I will try to make things better. And I'm just going to go right back to doing what I was doing because that's kind of interesting. So screen share, go to a different one. And hey, why did you do that? I got to move this thing out of the way so I can rotate this, rotate it again, rotate it again. Okay, and then I have to make it. Hey, what happened here? Stop the share. I gotta go find my thing again. That really made me mad. So I'm gonna go find this and then try to make it. Damn it, why does it go from one thing to another? Okay, stop share. I should probably try to. I want to work on this one, and it won't let me make it bigger. So I will just try to do with this what I can. So let's just look at this and what we got. We're using the highlights in this one to make the parts of the apple that are highlighted move towards the viewer's eye, which is really good. So off to the off center left side here and here makes these 2 spherical apples pop a little bit more. These crescent shaped shadows make that part of the apple recede or wrap around behind the apple just a little bit more. So these 2 apples in the lower, in the first row are working pretty good. This apple is a little bit less well defined, and everything is sort of still happening in the same plane here. We need to kind of maybe put a few more yellow dots over here, and then maybe try to get a few less yellow dots somehow in this crescent over here to get this kind of effect happening. And it wouldn't hurt my feelings to bring the violet blue stuff in here and do the occasional, interspersing of violet blue dots in here, especially in the crescent shaped shadow of the apple. You can do it in every single one. Here's a couple of little violet blue dots dispersed in the crescent shaped shadow, and that's even helping this one work because we've got a really well defined highlight on this side of the apple, and we've got this crescent shape over here which is kind of working as a shadow on this side of the apple. So even though this apple is almost square in terms of it being, it's kind of diamond shaped, it's got a straight edge here and a point, and a straight edge here and kind of a point. Can you see how this is almost a square apple instead of a round apple? So we need to just kind of bring a few more dark blue dots in here to kind of help round over these 2 corners and make it a little bit rounder like this one is. This is also, although that's happening, this is a good round apple. This feels like a good round apple. This one feels like a good round apple. Hey, all of them in the background feel like a really good round apple. I love the pool of light in the foreground. That's really good. Right up here, this is interesting. We talked about there being a little bit of difference in the background and a little higher key, something of that in the background. But we need to take a little bit more of these blue violet dots and intersperse them through here to knock this down a little bit, because right now this part of the background is advancing towards the viewer. And it's competing with this to try to be in the same plane. And if we could intersperse just, like 20 more blue dots interspersed between all of this, that would knock this back a little bit to let the background be in the background. And so we need to kind of knock this one down a little bit. But this was actually a pretty good project and I like it a lot. And so I'm going to hit the stop share. I'm going to come back to you guys and I'm seeing if there's any like frowny faces, you know, in your kind of associated with the participants here in the participants list. No frowny faces. I don't see anything else in the chat. So you guys are just absorbing this, right? You just think it's wonderful. I'm going to keep on going because I can't help myself anymore. So screen share, come back to screen share and let's do this one because it's open. Okay, so I don't quite know whose this one is either, but it's really cool. We have the 7 apples, and for the most part, they are doing their thing. They have some kind of crescent-shaped shadow that is fairly consistent in most of the apples, and they have some kind of highlight that is over on the left side, left center. That's pretty consistent, and so they're all being very spherical for us. That's good. We've got the pool of light down in the foreground, and that really helps to kick the foreground forward. That's nice. We might want to take some of these blue and green dots and just kind of run them around the outside edge of this pool of light down here a little bit, so that the light pool doesn't just run right off the edge of the page. You know, it's kind of nice how these contour lines kind of wrap around the fruit a little bit. They create a little bit of contrast, and that's nice. It might be nice to have just a little bit of contrast to kind of help to contain this pool of light in a little bit more long elliptical shape by just bringing some of the green and some of the blue down here and giving us just a little bit more along the edge and along and around here in kind of a curving shape to kind of help make that pool of light just sort of look like a really long elliptical space here. I like the cast shadow over here. I'm pretty much liking the background. The background is fairly uniform all the way through. So some places I'd like even more blue, more high density blue here, like 80% blue dots maybe in this corner, like there are kind of over here. And maybe just a few more orange dots in this little upside down triangle right here to just kind of break up this background just a little bit more. But overall, I like what's going on in this, and it is a good illustration of plastic color happening. So I didn't really give you guys very much of a chance to interact. You haven't really demonstrated much of an interest in unmuting your mics and blurting out stuff. So I haven't really done much, you know, in the way of giving you any space today to talk about anything. If anybody wants to talk about something, you are sure welcome to unmute your mic and talk about it at any point and interrupt me. And I love interruptions. They're good. I'm even going down here to turn up your volume so that I can hear you, because this thing resets every day and it throws it right back down to 20% volume, and I got to knock it up to 95% volume so that people from a long distance can be heard. I wanted to morph this into a little bit of a demonstration of how to frame these things. So I'm going to grab my picture frame and my painting and come right back to you guys and show you this process. These picture frames are available at Walmart and probably by Merch, and of course downtown at Art Connection and that kind of thing. But for $10, for like $9.97, you can get yourself a picture frame that already has a window mat cut for it and glass in the picture frame, which is pretty awesome. And so I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do this without getting things dirty. So I might take, I've got a magazine here that I can kind of open up here and make a clean spot that I can work with on this. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to take my painting and frame it for you guys really fast. Just pop it into the frame just to show you what it looks like. So this is what the painting looks like when it's not in a picture frame. And so it's just kind of nasty. It is curving and curling a little bit. And, you know, it's that. And so we're going to try to figure out what this might look like in a picture frame. So I'm going to change video to the overhead bird's eye view. And when it comes on here, there we are. Okay, bird's eye view. Here we are. So I'm going to flip this frame over. Let's assume that this is a brand new frame and it doesn't have a picture in it. There's always going to be some kind of a method for getting the backer board inside on the back of the picture frame to lock into the back of the picture frame. There are these little lock tabs, and there's different kinds of methods for doing this. So just turning all of the lock tabs off and taking them out is a thing. And I'm taking out the old artwork. Let's see, the old artwork was a Martin Luther King drawing from 1,000,000 years ago. So these picture frames basically are just, some kind of a pre-cut mat and glass. And so we're going to put the pre-cut mat back in there. We're going to take our artwork and we're going to flip it upside down and try to center it in the opening. The frame is 11 by 14 is the size of the frame. The mat window is about 8 by 10. 8 by 10 is a standard size for photographs. 8 by 10 will take, a ½ inch off all the way around from an 8.5 by 11 inch thing. And so our image size is generally about, 8 by 10, give or take. So I'm going to try to place this in here and see how it frames, and see whether I have to kind of adjust myself a little bit. Now, if I was doing some really fancy framing here, I would actually be cutting my own window mat for this. But I think for this one right here, I'm just gonna try to split the difference between some of my edges that are visible. And so I'm just trying to see how to get this thing to sit as flat as possible in here and as level as possible. And then I'm going to hold it down with one hand and just take some masking tape for now. There are archival tapes that you can use that don't have any kind of acidic glue residue in them, that will last forever and not ever, discolor with time or anything like that. But I think, for us, for just trying to do something that's a student project and that we might only want to use in this picture frame for a little while, I'm going to put like 2 or 3 pieces of tape along the top edge just to hold it at the top edge. With moisture and humidity, paper tends to expand and contract between the summer and the winter and the different moistures in the air. So you pretty much only want to hang something from its top edge inside of a picture frame. And we're going to take the backer board and replace it right back in here again and put the retaining clips into their position. These rotate into place. So it all kind of holds everything flat and uniform like that. And so when we flip this over, we should get a pretty well framed piece of artwork here. Now, I did not take time to actually, you want to take window cleaner like Windex or something and actually take the frame apart and wash both sides of the glass with Windex to try to get any dust or particles or anything out of the glass, both on the front side of the glass and the back side of the glass. But I'm going to come back to the talking head view here. There's nothing like a picture frame to really, let's see, there we go, to really add to the presentation of a piece. The piece is now being held flat and it's under glass. It has a window mat that kind of helps to, well, the window mat and the frame all help to really frame the artwork and create even more of a sense of a focal point, even more of a sense of finish. And so, and this thing is ready to frame. I mean, it's got a hanging device on the back of the picture frame so that you can hang this up with one nail, and bada bing, bada boom, you are ready to hang and display this work of art that you worked 6, 7, 8 hours on painting. So it's really worth it to actually put the time in to get a really nice painting. And then for $10, really $9.97 at Walmart, you can get one of these picture frames and just pop it right into the back of the picture frame. And you have then a work of art. You've also, played a little bit with the idea of presentation, professional presentation of your design, your artwork. And, it is suitable for framing, and it becomes a really nice composition and artwork that you did yourself. With this one, there's enough margin down here with the original paper showing inside the window mat that I could sign my name on one end, and I could write in a title for this thing. So this thing, we might want to call this like an homage to Cezanne, because it's Cezanne's apples, and we're doing a reinterpretation of Cezanne's apples. So paying homage to something, HOMAGE, homage, or with the French pronunciation homage, is a really fancy way of saying that you are, you're learning by kind of replicating a masterpiece from, a person who came before you, and you're paying homage to that person by doing that. Plus, it's an educational, activity for yourself. So this is a great way to do things. And if you want to do something with this project that is more than just stick it back into a pile of junk, on your table or on your desk, hang it on the wall. You kind of almost owe it to yourself after you put in 6 or 8 hours painting this thing to go ahead and buy the picture frame and stick this in a picture frame. So I wanted to show you that today as part of our process. And take my magazine out of here so that I got a place to lean my elbow. Are there questions? Do you have any questions or comments or concerns about this project? Many of you finished it, and many of you have uploaded it already, and I probably showed a couple of your pieces this morning. So are there any other questions or comments for the good of the order today? Getting you guys to talk in class is like pulling teeth. And after 8 weeks together, I was hoping that you'd find more of a comfort level with being able to talk in front of other people, talk to the teacher, because it's that, and I know it's hard. It's a skill that needs to be developed, just like all of this other stuff that we're doing here. We're developing skills in color theory and design, but part of that is part of working in the art world and the design world is being able to communicate your ideas, including verbally. And so that's why I'm always kind of inviting you to please, share your ideas, even questions, because there's no such thing as a bad question. I'm happy to answer them. But if there are no questions, I'm going to let you guys go for the weekend. Just because you have uploaded your piece and declared it finished, if you've learned anything in today's critique, please go back in and work on your piece some more to help those apples become more three-dimensional, to help that foreground pop more into the foreground, or to help that background recede a little bit more into the background. Because opening up this illusionistic space is everything about what plastic shapes, plastic space, and plastic color is all about. We're going to start something new next week. And since I've got some people who are still working on this project, I'm just going to let you guys kind of read the second half of the chapter, and you'll get all caught up on this stuff. And then we will talk about the next, which is going to be the last project, on Monday next week. So until then, have a good weekend, and I will see you on Monday. Goodbye for now.